We're going to move on to the next position here, and I think Taylor's going to take this one away.
That I am, and it is the interior defensive line because we do need to retool it a bit. And I'm going to start with Zach Sealer. At 6'6", 305 pounds, he had 748 snaps, which was 70.3% of the snaps last year. 55 total tackles, 10 sacks, 1 fumble, 1 pick. He had a 33.4 PFF tackling grade, a 71.5 pass rush grade, and a 70 run defense grade. He's 30 years old, had 1 penalty, and he will be one total penalty, that is, and he will be an undrafted free agent in 2027. I think we all are in agreement here. He's easily a superstar on this defense. He's an excellent complement to the defined edge rush linebackers we have on the team, like Jalen Phillips, like Chop Robinson. He's a great run stuffer, clear-cut anchor on the D-line. I'd love to ideally get like a 1 to 2 year extension with Sealer.
Yeah.
At his age, I don't know about adding too much to that, though. But as it stands now, he is clearly one of the best talent to cap number ratio contracts, not only on his team, in the league.
Yeah, what a steal.
What
a steal.
Yeah.
An absolute steal. Also a steal, Calais Campbell. And the reason I wanted to include the height and weight is because of Calais Campbell and Calais Campbell alone. This man's a giant. Giants exist. His name is Calais Campbell. He's 6'8", 282 pounds. He had 57.8% of the snaps, which kind of lines up when you look at like his past few seasons. He's getting up there. It lines up with his last few seasons in snap count. 52 tackles, 5 sacks, a fumble, no interceptions. He did have a 28.2 tackling grade, 66.2 pass rush grade, and an 85.9 run defense grade. He will be 39 at the start of next season, had 0 penalties. He is currently a free agent. Although he was an exceptional player for us, and he's an easy Hall of Famer in my mind, he's not a long-term answer at this position.
No, of course not. Yeah.
He was good as a complimentary pass rusher and as a run stopper, even considering that snap count I mentioned earlier. I'd love to bring him back for another 1-year deal, which would basically push back like this need that we have another season. So just be pushing the problem down 1 year, dealing with stuff like the safety room, corner room, and all that. That all being said, considering his age and current state of the team, it's already possible he ends up either retiring or going to chase a ring with I hate to say it, but a better team like Baltimore or Philly. We also have Deshaun Hand, Benito Jones, and Neil Farrell as the depth options. Now for Deshaun Hand, he did improve from his previous seasons across the board. He's not a particularly young player, but Hand does have experience in the system and can bring solid depth to the position. And I'll get back to Hand in a bit. I want to get through these other two real quick first. Benito Jones has he had a pretty slight regression compared to his season in Detroit in 2023-2024. However, he's still a decent depth option for the team, offering something different compared to his fellow D linemen, and that being size. He's 335 pounds. Nobody really on the roster compares to that except for one person. I'll get back to Jones here in a bit, but Neil Farrell is also at 325 pounds, and what's interesting about him is he's still under contract. Other than Sealer, Neil Farrell is the only Dolphins D lineman under contract. So I kind of wonder if he's going to take that Benito Jones role as a depth option in 2025. Before I get into why this is a need, how to fix it, all that stuff, I wanted to throw it over to you guys. Keith, what do you think about the D-line?
I think it's certainly a need, and I would be willing to bring Campbell back, but I wouldn't mind finding somebody, whether it be in the draft or free agency, who's a longer term option at defensive line. I mean, when we brought in Sealer, we brought him in on a kind of a prove it deal, and we were vindicated for doing so. Uh, I wouldn't mind going out there and trying to find another Zach Sealer. And I know those guys don't grow on trees. Zach Sealer kind of blossomed under us, but there are guys in free agency and even in the draft who are going to drop that we can bring in and kind of hope to have Zach Sealer mentor them and hope to get the best out of them. That being said, I don't see us spending a first round pick on defensive line, and even second round, I don't know. So we're gonna have to go bargain hunting again this year, and whether it be Calais Campbell or one of these other journeyman guys, I don't know that this is a need that we're going to fix this offseason.
Yeah, I
And
disagree with you, man. I think
yeah,
I think they address this really high in the draft, depending on who's available. Right, I'm talking like first, second round, because then your defensive line, your interior defensive line, is set for the next 5 to maybe 8 years, and you don't have to worry about it. You know what I mean? Now, if Campbell wants to come back, whatever. Yes, please. Like, let's roll the red carpet out, come back, you play your 52% of your snaps, and you're a champ, right? But we have to lock this defensive lineup. We got gouged so much up the center when Campbell and Sealer weren't on the field together. We have to do something. And for if Greer does not address this, it's one of those. It's like not doing the offensive guards last offseason. You know what I mean? In my opinion.
I would love to see them just spend the whole draft tackling the inside, the interior, man. Like, I don't even care if you want to use free agency to fill all the other holes. I would be completely fine with that because I just want to see the trenches kind of built up. Something I saw in my research, because I have edge rushers coming up next, spoiler alert, but something I saw is that most teams aren't relying on edge rushers like we're used to for pressure on the quarterback. The defensive tackles have become a huge part of rushing the passer. So they're just getting more and more. I mean, their job description is ever expanding at this point. So to have a good one, I think, is pretty important. To Keith's point, though, I have no idea what they're going to spend. I think as we get closer, we'll start to hear more rumors. We'll start to see, we'll start to get the mindset of where Greer and McDaniel are at here, and even the defensive coordinator. But you can't deny that defensive tackle is a need when we only have one real defensive tackle on the roster.
Yeah, and I'm really glad I reached out to you guys before getting into why it's a need and what to do, because you guys kind of debating over how big of a need it is. It's interesting because I think there's two options here. Like I said before, Zach Sealer and Neil Farrell Jr. are the only interior defensive linemen we have under roster next season. Good news, Zach Sealer is the anchor on the line, and you can build around him. So there's a great starting point when it comes to retooling the defensive line. But Campbell is a nearly 40-year-old player. The team has patched the issue last season with a bunch of one-year contracts. So with all that being said, you kind of have two options here. You either take Campbell, go like, hey, do you want to come back? Here's another one-year option. You run back the same strategy. Go bargain hunting, trying to find a bunch of one-year contracts, run this back, fill the rest of the holes on the team. But you still have to deal with it. Or you end up, whether that be through Campbell retiring or playing elsewhere so he gets an easier path to the Super Bowl, we'd have to actually revamp and do the work to get this defensive line revamp here. With Farrell already under contract and considering his size, as I said earlier, I wonder if there's a plan in place for him to replace that Benito Jones role in the team. So then you really only need about 2 players there. I'm not crazy about the defensive line class in free agency, but it is solid. You can find a few replacement starters there. And there's some quality depth options there too. I'm actually much higher on the depth options in terms of the starters in free agency. But draft-wise, there's also a ton of – like when you want – if you need offensive line, defensive line, or safety, I'll throw in the running backs too, this is the draft for you.
Yeah, Mike Mayock said that defensive tackle was his most depth in this draft, for him at least.
Yeah. So there's a chance we could get somebody who, I'm not saying we'll have an all-pro player in round 4, but we could pick somebody up in the draft in round 4, and he can actually play a sizable role on this team. That's how good the talent pool is. So that's how I would fix the defensive line. A little bit of free agency, a little bit of the draft. But you basically have 2 options. You either run it back as is if Campbell's up for it. If not, we got to actually go through and completely retool this thing because Anthony's right. It's about time for the team to go back to the trenches.